Welcome, listener. Tonight we travel back in time, not to witness a great battle or a royal ceremony, but to something far more subtle. We explore the quiet, hidden world of medieval sleep. How did knights, nobles, and peasants find rest in the age of castles and candlelight? What did it mean to sleep in the Middle Ages, when silence was rare and comfort was a luxury? As we begin this slow and uneventful journey, settle into your own modern resting place and let your mind drift gently into the long and winding corridors of medieval night in the Middle Ages. Sleep was not merely a biological need, but a rhythm shaped by nature, faith, and society. People believed that sleep restored the body's balance of humors. The ideal conditions for rest were linked to alignment with the stars and the quiet presence of divine order. Night was sacred and mysterious, governed by candles and prayer. Most people slept in two phases known as first and second sleep. The first began shortly after dusk. After several hours, people often woke naturally. This waking period might last for an hour or more and was used for meditation, quiet conversation, or tending to small tasks. Then came the second sleep, leading until dawn. This segmented pattern was considered normal and healthy. The total rest obtained across these two periods matched the natural rhythm of the world. Sleep was also moral. Too much was considered slothful. Too little could invite illness or spiritual weakness. Finding the proper balance was part of living a virtuous life. Physicians wrote about the importance of sleeping on the correct side. The church offered prayers to be said before bed. The sounds of night were not ignored, but seen as reminders of mortality and vigilance. Knights were warriors, but they were also landholders, householders, and sometimes devout Christians. Their sleeping arrangements reflected this mix of roles. In a well-fortified castle, a knight might sleep in a sola, a private upper room with a fireplace and small windows. The bed itself could be large, with a wooden frame and thick ropes crisscrossed to hold a mattress filled with straw or wool. Over this came linen sheets, heavy blankets, and perhaps a fur covering. Privacy was rare. Even in noble households, servants often slept nearby. The bed was sometimes enclosed in curtains to block drafts and create a sense of separation. In wartime or on campaign, a knight's bed was whatever he could carry. A rolled woolen blanket on the ground, beneath a pavilion or within a tent. In colder months, sleeping fully clothed was common. Armor was removed, but weapons stayed close. Horses slept nearby, and sentries rotated through the night. A night's sleep was often shallow, interrupted, and purposeful. Sleep was part of the rhythm of readiness. It served the body but bowed to duty. Castles were not silent places. Even at night, the sounds of servants, animals, wind, and the creaking of timber carried through stone corridors. Within the lords, household beds were shared. Husbands and wives slept together, but so too did children, nurses, and even visiting guests if space demanded it. The great hall, used by day for feasting, might become a sleeping area for retainers and guests. Straw mats, pallets, and benches were repurposed. A small group of guards stayed awake through the night, pacing the walls or tending fires. Light came from tallow candles or oil lamps, casting flickering shadows. Thick shutters kept out drafts, though not always successfully. Winter nights were especially long. Fireplaces helped, but rarely heated an entire room. People wore caps to bed, and sometimes gloves. Sleepwear was minimal or reused day clothing. Comfort was practical, not indulgent. In wealthier homes, feather mattresses appeared by the late Middle Ages, but these remained rare. Most still lay on straw, covered in linen if fortune allowed. Every element of the sleep environment reflected one's place in the hierarchy. Peasants, who formed the majority, slept in simpler spaces. A single-room cottage housed people, animals, and supplies. The family bed might consist of a sack of straw on a wooden frame, or even directly on the earthen floor. Children slept together, sometimes in the loft. Warmth came from proximity and shared blankets. Night sounds included livestock, nearby neighbors, and the wind against thatch. There was little sense of isolation. Privacy was nearly unknown. Sleep followed the cycle of labor. In harvest seasons, exhaustion guaranteed deep rest. In winter, longer nights invited more rest, though hunger might disturb it. Some peasants owned no candle and went to sleep with the sun. Others stayed awake in conversation or mending clothing. In colder areas, people huddled together. The idea of a personal bed was foreign. The body found rest wherever the rhythm of life allowed. Sleep was a necessity, not a luxury. Medieval sleep was surrounded by ritual. Evening prayers were common. The paternoster, or a saint's invocation, marked the boundary between waking and rest. Superstitions added layers of meaning. Windows might be closed to keep out spirits. Herbs like lavender or rosemary were used to ward off nightmares. Sleep was not entirely safe. Nightmares were believed to have spiritual causes. Some feared demonic visitation. Night air was considered unhealthy. Bad dreams were warnings or temptations. Sleepwalkers might be seen as possessed or troubled. In monasteries, monks woke at specific hours for prayer, interrupting their sleep to serve divine time. Bells rang through the night. Vigilance was as holy as rest. For all classes, the night held both comfort and mystery. Its silence was never complete. Its peace was always provisional. Asterisk in the medieval world, sleep was not measured by hours on a clock, but by the rise and fall of the sun. Seasons ruled the cycle of rest. In summer, when daylight lingered late, sleep was shorter. Labor stretched long into the evening. In winter, when darkness arrived early and lingered, people slept more. Candlelight was expensive. Firewood was rationed. The long hours between sunset and sunrise created more time for reflection, storytelling, or the segmented rest that was so common. The body responded naturally. There was no sense of lost sleep or insomnia. It was simply part of the year's turning. The winter solstice brought the longest nights. Entire communities adjusted their rhythm. Farming ceased. Social visits were rare. Stillness grew. In these months, dreams deepened. Sleep was not only longer, but more symbolic. People spoke of visions, warnings, and sacred signs. In spring, with the return of light, rest became lighter again. The crow of the rooster, the stir of livestock, the whisper of breeze through growing fields, all marked the return of wakefulness. No alarms were needed. The world itself was the timekeeper. The structure of medieval sleep was shaped not just by time, but by physical space. Beds varied enormously in form and comfort. At the lowest level, a woven mat or pile of straw served as a bed. Sometimes reeds or leaves were used, gathered fresh and changed only when mold or insects demanded it. These beds lay close to the hearth, where some warmth lingered. In noble households, beds were made with frames of oak or ash, strung with ropes to hold the mattress. The mattress might be filled with wool, feathers, or straw, depending on wealth. Sheets were made of linen, if affordable, coarse hemp, if not. Blankets were woven from wool, dyed in earth tones, or left natural. Feather beds were prized but rare. They held warmth and softened the hard boards of bedchambers. Curtains hung round the bed frame, offering insulation and a sense of enclosure. These were not merely decorative. They trapped body heat and muffled sound. In the great houses, these beds became heirlooms, passed from generation to generation. Bedchambers might be shared by many, yet the bed remained a private world. It was both status and shelter. Though science was limited, the people of the Middle Ages were deeply interested in the world of dreams and the phenomena of sleep. Dreams were not random but meaningful. A pleasant dream might be seen as a divine reassurance. A disturbing one, a warning or spiritual test. Monks recorded dreams in journals. Kings consulted clerics for interpretation. The Church acknowledged that dreams could be inspired by angels or demons. Physicians linked them to the balance of humors. Too much yellow bile might produce vivid, troubling visions. The content of one's dreams was considered as important as daily behavior. Sleep disorders, though poorly understood, were part of the cultural landscape. Sleepwalking was feared and sometimes hidden. Excessive sleep was linked to melancholy or laziness. Night terrors were seen as spiritual attacks. Remedies included prayer, herbal tonics, confession, or even pilgrimage. There was no concept of insomnia as we know it, but those who failed to sleep were pitied or seen as cursed. Some believed the soul traveled during dreams. A restful sleep meant a soul in balance. To sleep well was a blessing. To sleep poorly was a sign that something, either physical or spiritual, required attention. As you settle into your own bed, consider the long lineage of sleep that stretches back through the ages. The medieval knight resting in his curtained bed, the peasant curled beside the hearth, the monk rising at midnight to chant the hours. All lived in a world where rest was shaped by the turn of seasons, the voice of the church, the whisper of superstition, and the quiet discipline of daily life. Sleep was not merely escape, but participation in the larger order. Let this knowledge settle upon you like a woolen blanket. Let your breath slow. Let your body find its own rhythm. Sleep now, as they once did, not hurriedly, but fully. You are part of history's quiet side. Sleep well.